Welcome back to Total Death Edition. We have finally beaten Adventure Mode, so we're now moving on to the minigames, which have also been made drastically more difficult in this mod. The first minigame, as usual, is Zombotany. Not only are the zombies stronger, but there are also more types of Zombotanies in the TD mod. Against pea shooter zombies, I went with the obvious hard counter, Garlic. Moving the zombies into an empty lane protects our sun producers and makes it easier for Gloomshrooms to kill everything quickly. It is by far the most efficient defense possible. And since there are only pea shooter and walnut zombies before the first flag, it's just free Gloomshroom value for the entire first half of the level. It gets a bit more tricky when squash zombies spawn after the first flag, since they can insta-kill our Garlics, but it's no big deal since we have 8,000 sun to spare and like 5 Doomshrooms in reserve by now. Anyways, now we super fast forward, and this level is essentially a free win compared to the hard levels we had in Adventure Mode. Then we have Walnut Bowling, which should be self-explanatory, but of course, it has been changed from the original game in Total Death Edition. To have only one basic zombie in the first wave? I don't know what happened with the spawn rate for this level, but this version of Walnut Bowling is even easier than the one in the original game. I suppose the modder couldn't make it harder, so might as well make it beatable for toddlers, I say. So yeah, another free win. But Total Death Edition is all about that sweet RNGesus if you've seen the adventure mode of this mod. And the next level is the definition of luck itself, since it's slot machine. Each slot spin now costs us 50 sun, by the way, which is twice as expensive as in the original game. But actually, we also get twice as much sun from the sky and sunflowers, so it's just scaled for this mod, I guess. But as you'd anticipate, there's not much strategy to this level. You can get complete trash like Cactus, or you can just get lucky and win 3 sunflowers in a row early for an easy win. Just 5 sunflowers are more than enough to beat the level, since you just wait for a few waves to pass to accumulate enough sun, and we win automatically when we reach 2,000 sun. Another free win? Now I know I've been blitzing through these Total Death Edition levels like they're nothing, but I promise you there will be some difficult minigames, and this one should be pretty familiar for longtime viewers of the RCCH channel. Folks, welcome back, it's raining trash. Even though all the plants you get from the sky are completely random, lily pads have an artificially boosted spawn rate in this level to take up about a quarter of all the plants you will get. Yeah, I get that you need lily pads to plant in the water, but the problem is that they put literally none of the danger zombies in the water, and then put all the things that could kill you on the ground, like the all-star zombies and Jack-in-the-Box zombies. Please tell me how Garlic is supposed to help out against these all-stars here. And all I want to do is improve my defense and replace my cabbage pults. What do we get? Yep, more lily pads. When the entire pool is filled up already, I'm getting Cactus, Garlic. Do you get what I mean by it's raining trash? Like, what the hell am I using the split pea for? And later on, they sent so many football zombies and newspaper zombies, there's basically no way to beat them unless you have Doomshroom or a perfect chain of instant kills. Too bad we got Siegeshroom when this newspaper zombie is mowing down our pumpkin, and then Tallnut is even more useless because it starts moving towards the right, which means it can't even block off one newspaper zombie. What a great level this is! Getting trash when you're in danger pretty much sums up this entire level. Newspaper zombie on the bottom lane? Okay, here's the lily pad. What's next? Yup, another lily pad. And right before we lose, a third lily pad, because why not? Well, trash pads, man. And if we're not losing to getting trash pads, then we're losing to the Bungie zombies because of course, it's a great idea to have them in a level where Umbrella Leaf is not one of the plants you can access. I mean, what defense? Why even bother having a defense? Just don't get trash and win, man. Well, you know, of course, we need another lily pad, and another lily pad, and we're dead. Fantastic, bro. Like, this game is so fun, man. Like, what the f? But precisely because this level is luck-based, I could just use Save Scumming to beat it, which is exactly what I did. Now, I thought the level was possible with just some soft Save Scumming, using only one checkpoint save on the third flag, then do the level legit between the third and final wave. But as you can tell from the amount of fails I'm showing you right now, that was pretty much impossible because we would always die to newspaper zombies. So, left with no choice, here I present you the extreme skill of Save Scumming every plant from the rain for infinite Doomshrooms. I didn't say it was going to be skillful gameplay, did I? I mean, you could just keep playing and wait until you get lucky to beat it legitimately, but I don't know how long that's gonna take. And I don't have infinite time to sit here and play Plants vs Zombies, so that's gonna be how I beat the level personally. But if you think you can do it, be my guest. But I'm good, and I'm just gonna take my win here, and that's its rating seats beaten. So I got back on track to beat more minigames, but thanks to newspaper zombies, Baguled is an absolute nightmare of a level in this mod. We must upgrade to Tallnuts as soon as possible and then shuffle our plans until we can block off the newspaper zombies to survive, which you guessed it again, is dependent on RNGesus. If you aren't careful and move away at a tall enough that you need, that will unblock the lane for a newspaper zombie, which is a way to lose in the first minute of the level. Not my best performance, that's for sure. But if you think you can cheese the level by spamming matches, you can't do that since you actually now lose a match for every mismatch you make. And you have to win before the first flag zombie comes, since we don't have instant kills. So it'll start summoning bungee ambushes and kill off our entire defense very quickly if we don't do that. So it's mostly a game of speed to get the matches quickly enough, and I was only 5 matches away from beating the level, but then Flag Zombie decided to spawn a pole vaulter and the game decided to not give any matches. More RNG's bullshit, I see. But thankfully, I was fast enough on the 4th attempt, getting 75 matches before the Flag Zombie even showed up, so that's Beguiled done. Now that's over with, it's time for Invisible, the level where all the zombies are invisible. As usual in Total Death Edition, the spawn rate is 8 times higher, but the only attacker we have in this level are pea shooters and kernel bolts. Dear God. The only saving grace is the conveyor belt glitch, which lets us place plants faster than usual. It's technically cheating, but I'm pretty sure the level is impossible without it. You'll see how the other conveyor belt levels are also impossible without the glitch later on in the video. The Flag Zombie is the main problem, since pea shooters and kernel bolts don't do damage fast enough. Since it spawns a bunch of graves, and also summons bungee ambushes every 10 seconds, of which we can't even see, it destroys our defenses very quickly. Half our plants in the pool are already completely gone, and I'll speed this up for you guys, but just the Flag Zombie alone managed to kill the entirety of lane 3. And now we can't place any of our plants there, we're just a sitting duck until our brains get eaten. But we can deal with this problem by clogging the rightmost column with walnuts. This is to force the graves to not spawn in the front, so by the first flag, we can get a full column of squashes to kill the Flag Zombie instantly, no matter where it is. However, defending Jack-in-the-Box zombies and Dolphin Riders with just pea shooters and kernel bolts might as well be pointless. Any defense we get up is destroyed so fast that it's impossible to repair faster than we lose. That's even with the conveyor belt exploit. And just a few pea shooters won't be good enough against Ghost Bucketheads, which is what killed us in this attempt. Instead, our best defense is a whole column of squashes in the back. That is the safety fodder to defend off infiltrating zombies. And when we're up against waves with multiple zombonis, our squashes can at least keep our lawnmowers alive compared to what I did last run, which had basically no way of killing any of the zombies, and it was just letting everything die. But when we arrive at the final wave, we have another question to answer. How are we supposed to deal with the Flag Zombie if we now can't place a squash in the rightmost column? Well, the short answer is you simply don't. It's a game of where RNG spawns the graves, and if you're unlucky, then too bad. You can't squash the Flag Zombie, and it's an auto loss to the bungee ambushes, which will eventually spawn a zombie that ignores lawnmowers like a pogo zombie and goes straight into our house. Mind you that even if there aren't graves fully covering the rightmost column, you're also not guaranteed to get enough squashes to get rid of the Flag Zombie in whatever lane it spawns in. And of course, it's only a matter of time until it spawns a bungee ambush with a zombie that is unstoppable by pea shooters and kernel bolts. This level is just that stupid. But thank RNGesus, I didn't have to play this again because I killed the Flag Zombie on the final wave in this next attempt. I know you can't tell whether I did or not because the zombies are invisible, but the fact there aren't more graves spawning means that the Flag Zombie is dead. So that is Invisible in the TD mod, beaten. So the next level is Seeing Stars. Yeah, I meant seeing a lot of plants. There's even a Grave Buster we have to fill in. And yes, there's actually no way for us to fill the Grave Buster outline if a grave doesn't spawn on the exact tile we need. So you'd be shocked to learn that somehow, this happened on the literal first grave spawn of the level. Statistically speaking, this is extremely unlikely, but that's just how I was handed the win on my first attempt of this level. Yeah, I'm getting a sense of how the modder is making these levels more difficult. Anyways, for the next level, I'll just let you see for yourself. Alright, let's go. Zombaquarium. What the hell? They instantly died. Are you freaking... Oh my god. Well, even in Zombaquarium, you can't catch a break from the modder's antics. Yeah, somehow we went from a strategy game into an aiming test. But thankfully, I was good enough and fed the Snorkel Zombies fast enough on my third attempt. Super fast forward from here, I just got a few more Snorkel Zombies to feed and make more sun from, and that's all there is to Zombaquarium, which is pretty straightforward. Now, moving on to Beguiled Twist, it's the same thing as Beguiled, except you have to twist to make matches and there's no punishment for making a mismatch. So it sounds easy to cheese the level by just spamming matches until we win, but the problem with that now is that the game crashes if we try to do a twist on a plant that gets crushed. I also thought we were behind the days of the crashes, but it's back. But since this is just the same thing as Bejeweled but easier, there's not much else I have to say, since just spamming matches as quickly as possible is an easy way to beat the level. Super fast forward again, and we're done with this as well. Now moving on to Big Trouble Little Zombie, this level is just the same as the one in Adventure Mode, except there's one more flag. So I'm just going to skip ahead to the hardest section of the level, but since the last time I played this, I now know about the conveyor belt glitch that lets us get new plants much faster, which makes it basically impossible to lose since we're constantly replenishing our supply of cherry bombs throughout the level. So yeah, that's it for this level too. So, Portal Combat. This is another conveyor belt level, and the gimmick of this level is these two pairs of connected portals that teleport zombies and projectiles through to the other portal identical to the one they entered. But there's an additional catch. Portals periodically change the positions now and then, for the better or the worse. So of course this means our fate depends on RNGesus because of how the portals could mess up our defense. I mean, luck is pretty much the name of the game if you just look at how the game trolls us here. What the heck? Are you kidding me? It went from here to here. But okay, at least the game doesn't spawn any more new zombies in lane 4, because it would be completely impossible for us to defend. So even if the portals are arranged like this right now, we're fine, but not for long. No, are you kidding me? It spawned right in front of the cactus and we couldn't kill it. Sure, man. I mean, it's all just luck whether you win or lose. But I'm just saying, we've still not had a real difficult level that's not just some pure RNG stupidity. And yes, I did beat this level on my second attempt, and it was a cakewalk since I got lucky enough with the portals this time around. But so far, nothing has been too difficult aside from its raining seeds, which doesn't really make sense considering this is total definition. But look no further since the remaining minigames will all be drastically harder than the ones we've seen so far. And I don't mean only a little harder, because every level from this point onwards is almost impossible. Well, most of them, I mean. The first of such levels is Column Like You See 'Em, which, the funny thing here is that there are no lily pads on the conveyor belt at all. Yeah, you can probably see the problem here. This leaves us with only one option to defend the water lane, Doomshroom. And while on the surface that may seem to trivialize the entire level, I'll show you why, even with Doomshroom, this level is nearly impossible to beat. Bro, come on. Come on. Where are Doomshrooms? Where's Doomshroom? Oh my god. More flower pots. More flower pots. More flower pots. More flower. What the heck is this? What the heck? Oh, it's all flower pots. It's all flower pots and all garbage. What the f? What is this? What? It's all flower pots. Always has been. And once again, we're at the wrath of conveyor belt RNGesus to win. Mind you, we are already using the conveyor belt glitch to give us more plants than usual, and we're still not holding off the football zombies. Forget about the trash pan epidemic from its raining seeds, it's now the trash pot epidemic. This is making levels more difficult gone like way too far. Imagine playing this without the conveyor belt glitch. I'd rather bang my head into a wall than try to beat this crap. It's not even the water lane that gives us the most trouble, even though we have literally no lily pads. But the football zombies' immense speed combined with their high health makes it uncounterable without multiple jalapenos or doomshrooms. Melon Potes aren't going to put a dent into these guys. And I'm not kidding you, but losing because you don't have Doomshroom is the entire level in a nutshell. This has to be some kind of practical joke, because there's not even strategy involved with me winning or losing. It's just whether RNGesus decided to bless me or not, and that's the only thing that matters. But of course, on a luck-based level, persistence is king. I didn't give up or skip the level, and I managed to do it in the end. It took me an hour of constant retries and praying for better luck from RNGesus to get enough Doomshrooms and jalapenos, but I did it. But this isn't even peak stupidity just yet, since this isn't even the hardest minigame we'll be beating today. If you thought Column Like You See 'Em was bad, Bobsled Bonanza is another step up in terms of difficulty. This is mainly because Spikeweed now causes 4,321 sun in the TD mod, so it's as good as useless. One of the biggest problems is that Zombonis are immune to slows, so they're unaffected by the permanent slow before the first flag. They also have double the health in the TD mod, so we need to already spend several instant kills to defend them on the first wave of the level, which then leaves us with absolutely none of those instant kills for the next wave. You see, that's a pretty big problem since the scaling is off the charts for this level, as the second wave is already 2 bobsled teams and a snorkel zombie, which there's basically only one way to clear them out again, an instant kill. But guess what? The next wave is here already, and now it's 3 bobsled teams. We don't even have our next kernel port set up because the new waves are spawning in so quickly, and there's no way to get up defense fast enough. And of course, the next wave is here again already, and now it's 2 dancing zombies and 2 more bobsled teams for us to deal with. Like, how are we supposed to not lose immediately in the early game? Oh yeah, we're dealing with 4 flags of this pure bullshit, by the way. Like, are you kidding me right now? There's literally no time to set up nearly enough comp cannons to survive, and the dancing zombies kill everything you place anyways. And the snorkel zombies make it so that you can't even use cattail to defend the ground lanes, or get sunflowers in the water. We lost our entire defense within 2 minutes, and I wasn't even trolling. Literally, how? With comp cannons completely out of the picture now, the only safe option I could go to was Doomshroom spam, since it's the only thing that could possibly deal with all 4 lanes at once in the early game. And while it does kill off large groups of bobsled teams easily, we still don't have a way to reliably kill off Zombonis. Their high health means that even multiple cattails can't clean them up fast enough, and it's simply impossible to keep up with all the zombies we get thrown at. So yes, even with Doomshroom, we lose within the first 2 minutes of the level again. So it may come as a shock that the way I've found to get through the early game is actually with Gold Magnet. The niche interaction is that a dancing zombie doesn't spawn backup dancers if it encounters a hypnotized zombie, making Gold Magnet a great way to protect our sunflowers without any setup required. And the good thing about Gold Magnet compared to Doomshroom is that the hypnotized zombies stay on the board after each wave. This means each Gold Magnet counters multiple dancing zombies, which is far more sustainable than using an explosive on every threat that comes. While dancing zombies are completely dealt with, we can then just spam blowers off cooldown to kill the bobsled teams and the snorkel zombies. But obviously, this strategy is not going to deal with Zombonis because there's nothing in our loadout for us to do any serious damage against them. So while we didn't instantly lose in the early game, we only found a way to delay our inevitable death by a little bit and let Zombonis kill us instead. The only thing that I imagine could possibly meet the Brave here is just spamming Gloomshrooms, since they're the only cheap enough plan to counter dancing zombies and bobsled teams this early on, while still doing some substantial damage against Zombonis for the later waves. But there's just no time to plant enough Gloomshrooms in the early game to not lose against Zombonis. We can't slow them down, we can't use cattails because of snorkel zombies, and we can't use Spikeweed. There is basically nothing that we could even possibly try if everything just dies in the first 2 minutes of the level. And the one way I got to get around this problem is to just hope that Zombonis don't come in the early game. It's not a strategy, but if you have a better way to beat this level, then you can definitely tell me. But you'll see that even with the extra Gloomshrooms, we still don't have enough of them by the first flag to counter Zombonis. Honestly, I'm completely out of ideas of what could even beat this absolute madness. And as for now, I can't really find a way to beat this level. Any conventional way of stalling does nothing, there's no time to set up a long-lasting defense, and even instant kill spam doesn't work because we need 2 to kill each Zomboni, which gets too expensive too quickly. I honestly have no clue what would even allow us to beat this. So to unstuck myself, I made some small adjustments to the game. I made Spikeweed 150 sun and Spike Rock 200 sun. I mean, come on, you gotta cut me some slack here. Now that I've made Spike Rock and Spikeweed actually usable, all our problems with the Gloomshrooms dying to Zombonis in the early game are completely gone, since we can easily kill off any of these Zombonis by paying a relatively low amount of sun. And after we get up all our Spike Rocks and 4 Gloomshrooms, all there is left to do is to just sit back and grab a drink, and just let Spike Rocks kill off all the Zombonis and replace them with new Spike Rocks when we can, and then wait for Gloomshrooms to rip through all the dancing zombies before they can even spawn any backup dancers. At this point, it might as well be impossible for us to lose our defense anymore because nothing they throw at us will be a problem. So that's one way for us to get through Bobsled Bonanza. Wait, this is just straight up cheating. Why do I even bother playing the game if I can just change the cost of any plant at any time? So I felt super guilty of beating this level by cheating, so I went back to this level off stream to beat it legitimately instead. But yeah, what even was my plan here if I couldn't even make it to the second flag without cheating previously? Well, I'm not kidding you, but I spent days analyzing my failed runs to understand what we needed to beat this level, and I came up with this loadout. Cob Cannon is our main damage dealer, but every other plant I have here is just as important and irreplaceable, even Marigold. Without Marigold, we couldn't get our first Cob Cannon fast enough, and the first wave would certainly kill us. We also need the extra sun so we can afford lily pads to place the Cob Cannon in the water to protect it. But after the first wave, we won't have our second Cob Cannon yet, and the dancing zombie is already coming in, so what do we do here? This is where Potato Mine comes into play, a way for us to kill the dancing zombie for only 50 sun. And of course, we're using Potato Mine instead of Squash because we need to save Squash to kill Zombonis instead. Who would have known Potato Mine was the missing piece of the puzzle all along, to help us conserve instant kills. Instead of spending a Cob Shot, we can achieve the same effect with a Potato Mine. But just because we survived the early onslaught doesn't mean we can afford to slip up at all. We still need to place down a bunch more Cob Cannons to ensure that we have enough of them to survive against the pure Zomboni spam later on in the level. So we need to keep min-maxing our sun production while we still can, by not using the Cob Shots when we don't need to. And most importantly of all, we have to properly time our Cob Shots so that we don't ever miss a dancing zombie, because just one dancing zombie slipping through is an instant game over. There is no margin for error here, and mistakes are unacceptable, but I was able to pull through and time all my Cob Shots perfectly against every single wave after wave, and we only have barely enough resources to beat every single wave, but I did it at last, the second flag mark, and I managed to get up all 11 Cob Cannons we needed to set up without losing. And now, time for the absolute destruction of all the remaining zombies in Bobsled Bonanza. And there we have it. Bobsled Bonanza beaten without using RNG manipulation or changing the cost of plants, just as the modder intended. I don't think he ever expected anyone to beat this level, but of course, I'm always pushing the boundaries of what's possible in PvZ on this channel. And if you thought Bobsled Bonanza was tough enough, Zombie Nimble Zombie Quake is somehow another step up in difficulty from that. This level's special gimmick is that the game is 5 times faster than usual. Yes, I am not speeding this up in post. Sunflowers recharge in literally 1 second, and we have to beat 4 flags of the game running at 5 times the speed. Every fast zombies is undefendable since there's so little reaction time against them. Forget about the Tangle Kelp and Lollipads to stop Dolphin Riders. All-Stars, even funnier, only takes 1 second to cross the entire lawn, and we died already. I didn't even know how I died while I was playing, but I know my head hurts from looking at that. The best shot we got at beating this level is with the lowest maintenance plants possible, which are going to be Chompers and Doomshrooms. But even that isn't good enough, since you can't react to the zombies and then activate your Doomshroom in time before it's dead. I don't think there's any way this is possible without macros or hotkeys to place plants, since just moving the mouse to select a new plant takes up like 2 to 3 seconds of real time, which is time we can't afford to spend on placing a single wall plant. But I guess the best choice I have for now is to use Doomshroom as our only defense, since it minimizes the amount of plants we have to plant to defend. So it wastes the least amount of mouse cursor moving time in exchange for defense. It's why we managed to get further in this run than in my last run, but still, it ain't pretty, since just once we're out of Doomshrooms, we're out of business. Now obviously, we can't run 4 Doomshroom seed packets, so we can only utilize other explosive plants like Cherry Bomb and Jalapeno to do our bidding. But of course, this isn't enough to defend against all the zombies because there are 6 lanes, and Cherry Bomb plus Jalapeno only covers 4 lanes when Doomshroom is on cooldown, so we have to constantly lose lawnmowers to survive. I think it's pretty much safe to say that there's no way in hell I'm going to beat this level. I'm not gonna try and beat this level myself, but you can check out the levels I could not beat video for how this level can be beaten. The link is in the description below. Next up is Whack-A-Zombie, and there's now a difficulty selector. As if the adventure mode Whack-A-Zombie wasn't hard enough already. Now, let me clarify here that the non-hard version of this level is the same as Whack-A-Zombie we already played during Adventure Mode, so I'll just be showing you how exactly they made this level even harder. Welcome to Whack-A-Zomboss. Self-explanatory what this level is, but I'm most certain that this is beyond impossible, considering it takes over 10,000 whacks to kill Zomboss. I had an auto-clicker set to 1,000 clicks per second to make sure I couldn't lose, so I managed to kill Zomboss relatively quickly. And imagine if I didn't. I probably would have broken my fingers trying to do this. But anyways, since someone actually beat Whack-A-Zombie from Brute Mode EX Plus without an auto-clicker, I'm looking forward to whoever is good enough to beat the level without cheating, since there's no way this could be beaten, right? So maybe let's look at a harder version of another level that doesn't make it impossible, Zombottany 2. The first Zombottany was a cakewalk, but we've got some new competition in the second iteration. Since Gloomwalk was so effective in the first Zombottany, that's the first thing I'm trying this level too. As expected, it was super smooth sailing in their early game since they were only pea shooters and walnut zombies. As for the buckethead screen door pumpkin zombies that also get introduced into early mid-game, turns out it's just a screen door zombie with more health. It barely survives an explosive, but it has so little HP left afterwards, just a Gloomshroom will clean it up very quickly, so it's basically a non-threat. When a first flag comes though, it becomes blatantly obvious why the same strategy we used previously isn't going to cut it this time around. First are the Blover Snorkel zombies, which on top of insta-killing all the plants it touches, also damages every plant on the screen every 10 seconds it's alive. Second is the bajillion pea shooter and Gatling pea zombies that literally kill everything so quickly we can't replace our garlics fast enough. It's not even one wave in and all our garlics are already cooked. I couldn't keep anything but one lane of plants alive, which should tell you how bad these Zombottanies were. And on top of that problem, even if you try to just keep one lane of plants alive, you can't stop the jalapeno zombie from wiping that out too. Well, anyone got any ideas on how we're gonna beat this? Well, time for the return of the dumb strategy. It's just diabolical at this point how often the answer to our problems is to just use Doomshroom. 8 Conehead pea shooter zombies? 1 Doomshroom will clean that right up. Did anyone say there was a huge wave of zombies approaching? Well, not anymore for the cost of only 200 sun. And the zombie lineup makes it much easier to abuse Doomshroom since there isn't much that can kill them in the water lane. Squash zombies can't spawn in the water, and everything else in the level moves at slow speed, meaning just stalling every zombie with Ice Shroom and Blover is enough for us to kill every zombie with Doomshroom and Imitator Doomshroom. I don't know why exactly they didn't bring back the Sunflower Zombies, which would have made this a lot more difficult, but just using Doomshroom turns this from one of the hardest levels into one of the easiest. And there we have Zombottany 2 beaten. Only a few more levels to go until we're done with the original minigames. And while we are on the topic of harder versions of other minigames, we also have Walnut Bowling 2. The funny thing about this level though is that for some reason, the giant walnuts move super fast across the lawn. At this speed, interactions start to break down, and this causes some zombies to be skipped over by the giant walnut, which is definitely strange. But because of the conveyor belt manipulation, it should come as no surprise to you guys that this is yet another easy level since we can just get infinite giant walnuts as soon as we clock the conveyor belt with 4 walnuts and 4 Explodonuts, which obviously kills everything the game throws at us, which pretty much is all there is to Walnut Bowling 2. We've only got a few more levels until we finish the TD mod minigames, but we still have a long journey ahead with the Limbo Page and Secret Page levels to go. And yes, 20,000 sun for Last Stand seems absurd, but you'll see why we have so much sun to work with. Since this is the TD mod, every level has 8 times more zombies, including Last Stand. We can pretty much forget about using any single target plants in this level, because of how many zombies there are. Though obviously, we should use plants like Gloom Shrooms and Fume Shrooms to deal with the massive swarms of zombies, since they have infinite pierce. But my first run on this level was completely atrocious. I built a defense that was way too flimsy against newspaper zombies, and even just 1 or 2 newspaper zombies can almost take out an entire pumpkin on their own. More awkwardly, I forgot I needed an instant kill for the flag zombie on flag 1, and I had my cherry bomb on cooldown. And Doomshroom couldn't save us here because I didn't have a safe tile to plant it. This defense became a relic of the past real quick when the flag zombies bungee ambush ended up killing half our Gloomshrooms, and I barely handled the remaining zombies with some quick thinking using pumpkins and stalls and instants. I quickly repaired the entire defense in hopes of surviving for the rest of the flags, but this defense is just no match for the newspaper and all-star zombies this level, which plowed through our wall plants like butter super quickly. And comedically, this run ended when I placed my giant walnut, which somehow didn't block off these football zombies. Well, anyway, we will need quite a lot of improvements to win. So, instead of using Fume Shroom, I pivoted to Cob Cannons, which won't anger newspaper zombies, meaning we don't have to replace our pumpkins nearly as often. Using Cob Cannons got me past the second flag, but at this point, just the number of all-stars that spawn every wave becomes a problem. Since Cob Cannons don't kill them in one hit, it becomes pretty difficult to protect all the Gloom Shrooms. Losing some of them is essentially unavoidable since we don't have infinite pumpkins to repair our defense with. And this gets progressively worse the further we go. After the third flag, there are so many all-stars, it's just getting ridiculous at this point. Basically, all our Gloom Shrooms are guaranteed to get eaten by the football zombies because our pumpkins simply don't recharge fast enough. Mind you, I'm already using Ice Shrooms, so there's not much more I could do to stop our pumpkins from dying so quickly. It also doesn't help we got extremely unlucky with a ladder zombie paving the way for a Jack-in-the-Box zombie straight to the back of our defense. And it was a miracle I didn't even die right there and then. I'm certainly f***ed though, because I only have 750 sun left and there's still an entire flag to beat. I tried my very best to beat the level with what I had left, but the all-stars had already caused far too much structural damage for me to survive any longer, and I couldn't possibly afford any more defense, so while this attempt was a big improvement, still not good enough. Over the next few attempts, I tried to make minor improvements to my defense to inch out enough of an advantage to beat the level. I first moved the Gloom Shrooms on the side lanes one column backwards to get slightly more damage output on the side lanes. But shocker, that wasn't enough to push us over the edge to beat the level, as that change doesn't nearly add enough damage for us to not lose our entire defense to football zombies later on still. And then Jack-in-the-Box zombies came in and completely wiped out the remainder of our Gloom Shrooms, which meant certain death for us. I then tried replacing the two middle Ice Shrooms with Doom Shrooms so I could deal with any infiltrating football zombies more easily when my pumpkins are dead as an insurance policy. But then an enraged ladder zombie spawned on a lane with no wall plants, so we still lost. Among the many things I tried, I also tested different wall plans, such as using walnut instead of pumpkin since it's cheaper and recharges faster. But this switch actually makes things worse since we now can't rely on Gloom Shrooms to deal with pole vaulters. The extra walnuts we stacked up early also didn't help against the football zombies and were probably counterproductive as well. But of all the things I tried, this was by far the most jarring plant choice, Imitator Coffee Bean. On first glance, this just seems completely stupid, but it's actually more useful than you may think, since we get into sticky situations quite often against football zombies. Having a whole extra Doom Shroom 5 seconds earlier is actually what makes the difference a lot of times, since you don't necessarily know whether you're screwed or not until you really know it and need that extra Doom Shroom right there and then to save our defense from total death. But all of that talk didn't even matter in this attempt because I messed up my lily pad timing against this Golden Dolphin Rider and lost all my defense anyway. And after several more attempts, I finally developed the winning strategy, which utilizes walnuts placed up to the 6th column and Imitator Coffee Bean. Having walnuts up to the 6th column precisely allows us to halt the football zombies in a space where our cop shot can hit both the incoming wave and damage the football zombies at the same time, dealing with both pole vaulters and footballs at the same time for maximum value. And when our walnut lines start to break down into later waves, the damaged football zombies will be easily taken out by our Gloom Shrooms that are parked safely in the back. Plus, we have a double insurance policy with 2 coffee beans on standby at all times to make sure nothing bad happens. When flags come, we can utilize both Ice Shroom and Doom Shroom at the same time to make double sure that no Jack-in-the-Box or ladder zombies can screw us over. And this stupid looking strategy using Imitator Coffee Bean actually worked out at the end. I suppose getting this redundancy on both Ice Shroom and Doom Shroom minimizes our risk of losing to some random BS, so that is last stand beaten. And now, time for Pogo Party, which actually the name is deceiving because there are no Pogo zombies in Pogo Party. They've been replaced by pole vaulters, dolphin riders, and squash zombies. So instead of 3 flags of pure Pogo zombie spam, it's now 3 flags of pure pole vaulter, dolphin rider, and squash zombie spam. All 3 zombies can start spawning immediately on the first wave. It doesn't sound very intimidating because all 3 of these zombies were only minor threats in previous levels. Squash zombies died to just a flower pot, and dolphin riders are countered by just a tangle kelp. So the level seems pretty simple, right? Well, with this loadout, definitely not. I went with Cob Cannon, inadvertently forgetting about the glitch where Cob Cannons only hit 2 lanes sometimes on roof levels, which is actually pretty consequential since we would need an extra Cob shot to defend every wave when considering the glitch. That one pole vaulter, which didn't die in lane 3 because of the glitch, went on to leap into the back of our defense and subsequently destroyed 3 of our Cob Cannons. The rest of what happened is self-explanatory, and since this glitch is too annoying for me, I'm just not gonna use Cob Cannon for this level. And I wanted to try Fume Shroom this level anyway. Theoretically, we can easily counter all the Dolphin Riders by just planting a lily pad every wave to force them to jump, then let Fume Shrooms clean up afterwards. Then, we could just use Flower Pots in every lane to proc all the Squash Zombies, and obviously Pole Vaulters just die to Fume Shrooms pretty quickly. Then add 4 layers of insurance in the form of Double Ice Shroom, Doom Shroom, and Blower. Surely this is foolproof, right? What ruins the strategy is the 50% rule in Plants vs Zombies, which is the rule that dictates when a new wave is sent, either after 25 to 31 seconds after the previous wave, or when we deal 50% of the current wave's hit points, which makes it essentially guaranteed we haven't killed all the Squash Zombies from the previous wave when the next wave is sent. As long as there are a couple of blue Squash Zombies in the new wave, they will overlap with the existing Squash Zombies, and then we cannot defend using just Flower Pots, since we won't have enough of them in time, destroying our defense no matter what. Hence, just using Flower Pots to counter Squash Zombies does not work, so we're actually forced to find a way to kill some of the Squash Zombies with sheer force. Now, you can probably see why this level isn't as easy as it sounds on paper. By the second flag, only 1 Twin Sunflower left and 200 stun in the bank. Guess I don't have to explain why this is most definitely a failed attempt. The most obvious way to kill Squash Zombies is with Gloom Shrooms. We just have to time our Ice Shroom to freeze the Squash Zombies when they're close, and Gloom Shroom's high damage will kill them outright very quickly. But it's also obviously ineffective, since Ice Shroom doesn't recharge fast enough for us to use it every wave, and if we don't have Ice Shroom, then we're still cooked like how we were previously. Plus, this setup is vulnerable to Pole Vaulters as we need Gloom Shrooms to defend them, so that's another problem we can't ignore. I switched to Imitator Doom Shroom instead, since Ice Shroom only affects 1 wave, whereas Doom Shroom can clear 2 waves at once. But I was unskilled and ended up in a situation where all 3 Ice Shroom, Doom Shroom, and Imitator Doom Shroom were on cooldown, so I screwed myself over. That wasn't even what ended the run though. Wait, what? What? No, no! What the heck? It went for the mower? Are you kidding me right now? But the deadliest threat isn't any of the zombies, but the relentless pressure that leads to actual brain damage. I'll show you exactly what I mean. Losing 2 Fume Shrooms doesn't seem that much of a problem financially, but before we can even repair that, the next wave is already here. Okay, so I gotta use the Doom Shroom right now. Okay, I also have to use Gravebuster. Actually, I need to slow these zombies down too, so I can deal with them. Never mind, I have to deal with Dolphin Riders. Okay, I'll just Doom Shroom again because I can't deal with everything right now. Gravebuster again, replant a Sunflower, again another Fume Shroom because I need to repair, deal with this blue Squash Zombie, gotta deal with these Dolphin Riders. Where can I plant a Blower? Okay, like right here is fine. Deal with the Squash Zombie. Okay, Netmarine, I cannot deal with the Squash Zombie. Okay, new wave already. I'ma just go back to another Fume Shroom. Okay, now I need to deal with this blue Squash Zombie again. Okay, try to slow him down too. Never mind, I have to deal with Dolphin Riders. Actually, I can't deal with them. Okay, I need to freeze them, I guess. Where can I plant an Ice Shroom? Okay, now, how do I kill them? Yeah, let's do Gloom Shroom. I need more Sunflowers. Wait, actually, next wave is already here. Look, it doesn't matter what strategy can theoretically beat this level if I as a human can't micromanage everything at once. So let's do something a bit simpler for this level, the thumb strategy. Running double Doom Shroom is self-explanatory, but why run Gold Magnet for that Hypnotized Zombie and not Cherry Bomb or Jalapeno? Well, Pole Vaulters actually can't attack Hypnotized Zombies, and Squash Zombies also instantly kill themselves against Hypnotized Zombies. Yup, Gold Magnet literally hard counters 2/3 of the entire level, and I didn't think about using it until now. Since only one Hypnotized Zombie can literally counter infinite Squash Zombies, Gold Magnet is by far the most cost-effective way to reliably stop them. So, how is this strategy still not foolproof? Well, Gold Magnet hard counters 2 of the zombies this level, but not Dolphin Riders. And the game sends so many of them every wave later on, you'll need several lily pads to stop them all, like right here. Even 3 lily pads weren't enough, and we had to use our Pole Cleaner. But since Gold Magnet doesn't recharge fast enough for us to cover all the ground lanes at once, we'll need to selectively sacrifice some of our roof cleaners later on, which should be a reliable strategy if it weren't for how some roof cleaners sometimes don't kill all the zombies they touch for whatever reason. The glitch did make for a pretty funny loss here though, because it appears that we have died to literal air. While Gold Magnet is too weak to cover all the ground lanes, it's also sometimes too effective. If we kill the squash zombies from each wave too quickly, then there's more squash zombies spawn sooner, which also die extremely quickly, causing so many seizures in a short period of time. We essentially get locked out from playing the game. And since I couldn't dig up the flower pots in the way of pole vaulters, they jumped right into our chimney. Just incredible. And also, just because you have a hypnotized zombie in a certain lane doesn't mean all the squash zombies there are no longer a threat, since they can still squish plants in the adjacent lanes, including Doom Shrooms, even though their main attack never actually detects a plant to begin with. Because of all these problems combined, I could not find a way to get through this level for many more attempts. I either died to a pole vaulter, or had too many seizures happen at the same time that prevented me from making the play I needed to save myself. I did have one attempt where I made it to the final wave, but I couldn't beat it since I didn't have enough sun to deal with all the dolphin riders. But after 2 hours of attempts, I finally made a significant breakthrough that allowed me to beat the level, and ironically, it doesn't even involve using Gold Magnet. So what I do is that every other wave, I try to kill all the squash zombies as quickly as possible using flower pots so that we can have the next wave spawn sooner. Then, with both waves of zombies on the board, I simply use ice shrooms and blowovers to stall them for as long as possible. And after we're done stalling, just use a doom shroom to clear out both waves simultaneously. And that's the strategy to beat this level. Yup, that's it. This is yet another example of why Doom Shroom is the best plant in the game. And ironically, Gold Magnet was a liability despite hard countering pole vaulters and squash zombies, because killing certain zombies quickly just meant less time to defend everything else. And that marks the very anticlimactic end to Pogo Party that doesn't even have Pogo zombies. I guess the moral of the story is to keep in mind that sometimes, less is more. And after that absolute disaster of Pogo Party, we got the final minigame, Dr. Zomboss' Revenge. Just like the first time we fought Dr. Zomboss in Adventure Mode, every zombie and Zomboss himself is slowed to half speed the entire fight, thanks to the game rule that slows down all zombies before the first flag, thus removing most of the difficulty from the level. Since the fight is the same as the one in 5-10, except Zomboss has more health, there's not much point in showing how the entire level plays out. But I guess this is a good time for me to tell you that most people who watch my videos are not subscribed, so if you like modded Plants vs Zombies content, hit that subscribe button for more similar videos. And anyway, I beat Dr. Zomboss on my first attempt pretty quickly. That concludes the original minigames in the TD mod, aside from Zombie Nibble Zombie Quick. We'll move on to the Limbo Page levels, some of which have also been changed in the TD mod. The first Limbo Page level is our challenge Walnut, which is fairly self-explanatory, and I imagine I don't have to explain why I'm bringing in Walnut and Imitator Walnut. Now, I didn't even intend to do this at the start, but I ended up beating the level using only Sunflower and Marigold. Since Walnut now has a fast instead of a slow cooldown in this mod, we can fill in the entire outline extremely quickly and beat the level without even damaging the zombies. Yeah, I also didn't know that playing as a true pacifist was an option in the TD mod until now. But now, for possibly the most difficult minigame on the Limbo Page. That's Sunny Day. This one level took me 57 attempts, or approximately 8 hours to complete. What's so special about this level that I spent 8 hours beating it? Well, it's almost identical to the original Sunny Day minigame, which is a 4-flag level where all sun from the sky is worth double the value, but with one new twist. Okay, what? You are not valuing the plants anymore, you cannot plant? Wait, what? What? What the heck? What? Yeah, the game doesn't exactly explain why we get completely locked out of planting new plants if the in-game text pop up. I had to do some experimentation to figure out what the condition was, and I found that this level's main gimmick is that if we have more than 20 plants on the lawn at once, then we can no longer plant for the rest of the level. You heard that right, 20 plants only for a 4-flag level. How was I gonna make this possible? Well, keep watching to find out. Everyone's first thought when looking at this level is to obviously use upgrade plants. More space-efficient plants mean higher overall output, but there's a small caveat that if you plant an upgrade plant while you have 20 plants on the lawn, it actually counts as a 21st plant and locks you from planting. Oh, but there are plenty more strange instances of how the 20 plant limit applies. For some reason, Imitator counts as 2 plants, so if you have 19 other plants on the lawn, then you get locked out of planting as well. So, what strategies are even usable here? I mean, 20 plants? That's like almost nothing. If you think about it this way, we barely managed to beat the original game using only 1 column, and 20 plants is equivalent to 4 columns, and there are 8 times more zombies in the TD mod. We got some pretty big problems here. Even Gloom Shroom won't be efficient enough since each pumpkin also individually counts as another plant. With 10 out of 20 used on Gloom Shrooms, then 4 more for Fume Shrooms to defend Pole Vaulters, we only have 6 left for Instants and Sunflowers, which simply isn't enough. So, Is the strategy to ditch DPS plants for the dumb strategy which doesn't utilize more than 20 plants at a lot at once? Well, definitely not, because we would have to spend more than one Doomshroom per wave if we wanted to defend football zombies, since the giant variant still tanks 2 instants after its helmet is removed by Magnashroom, meaning we will most definitely not have enough Doomshrooms to take them down. All we can do with the dumb strategy is actually just sit and watch as they run right through our defense. As for Gatling Peas, ignore that we can't plant anything, but focus on the football zombie in lane 2. We have a repeater, a Gatling Pea, and a Torchwood, and all of that can't even defend against one regular football zombie. So we're definitely cooked in the later waves when they send several football zombies at once. With only 20 plants, the dumb strategy, Gloomshrooms, and Gatling Peas all won't even make it past the second flag, so it's pretty obvious we can only choose Cob Cannon. I was originally pretty skeptical of it, since the only way to defend Jack-in-the-Box zombies would have to be to activate an Ice Shroom right as a wave gets sent, to freeze them in place so we can hit them with a Cob Shot. This also means we're forced to run Imitator Ice Shroom since we need to have at least one Ice Shroom every wave. Without Imitator Cob Cannon to help build up our early defenses, we will severely lack the damage needed to deal with giant football zombies for quite some time, which can be detrimental. And also, since the new wave always spawns after we use Doomshroom, we won't have our Coffee Bean back in time for an Ice Shroom before the next wave of Jack-in-the-Box zombies come in. Not freezing them in place is not an option unless you want to play God and predict which lanes they'll be coming in with a pre-fired Cob Cannon shot. All it takes is one mistake to ruin the entire run. You could try and save the run by rebuilding your Cob Cannons gradually and surviving off an absolutely minimal amount of Cob Cannons. But usually, that's not at all possible since all it takes is like 2 more Jack-in-the-Box zombies to spawn 2 waves later, and since you've got no more Cob shots left to fire, you're cooked. That's why this level was so incredibly difficult. The only way you can beat this level is literally playing perfectly for 40 waves straight, timing all your ice streams correctly, not missing a single Cob shot. The number of things that can be a problem is also astounding. Kill too many zombies too quickly, then you'll accidentally trigger the 50% rule. Being unprepared for a new wave is a death sentence since there's usually not enough time to plant an Ice Shroom reactively before Jacks explode, and we lose again. The margin for error in timing your Ice Shroom freezes every wave is also razor thin. Just half a second too slow with your Coffee Bean is the difference between surviving and losing on the spot. And yeah, I tried to salvage the run, but just a few waves later, I'm now getting completely overrun by the football zombies with no more Cob shots left in the pocket. All of this happened because I waited half a second too long to plant my Coffee Bean. So obviously, I tried looking for some plants that can help mitigate my sometimes slow reaction speed. The first thing I tried was Squash, since its short cooldown means it's a good emergency use plant to kill a Jack-in-the-Box zombie that's about to explode, as you can see here. But Squash does not fix our problem. Since we used our Ice Shroom a second late, it means that our next Ice Shroom will also be a second late since it started recharging just a second later. Having Ice Shroom almost off cooldown is not good enough, and the Jacks are coming again, meaning that the 1 second delay 2 waves ago has cost us the game. That's literally how little leeway you have for timing your Ice Shrooms correctly. Moral of the story, even if you try to fix your past mistake, it won't heal every wound. The level is simply that precise, and any sort of imperfection is devastating. We can pre-plan our Ice Shroom and then still die if used slightly too early. That's exactly what happened here. And you know, I learned my lessons from my previous attempts. Don't even bother wasting time to try and salvage the run because it's certainly cooked. And it's also not just Jack-in-the-Box zombies that can cook you. Too many all-stars spawning early on is also another way for you to get cooked, since there are limited Cob shots and you simply won't have enough instant kills to deal with them. There's absolutely nothing I can do about this all-star. It's like we're collecting Infinity Stones for the number of different ways you could die in this level, with how many ways it could go sideways. Also, I haven't died to a pole vaulter yet, so it's pretty convenient timing while we're on this topic of different ways for me to lose to die to a pole vaulter in the run immediately after. We also cannot afford to make a single mistake against them, or else 2 or 3 Cob Cannons instantly die. On top of that, I also need to not get tempted into using my Ice Shroom to try and save a Cob Cannon this level. If you do that, then you can say goodbye to the rest of the Cob Cannons that would have otherwise not died, and my who decided to use an Ice Shroom when I wasn't supposed to is wholly responsible for the loss. But of course, I also can't forget my favorite way of dying in this game, RNGesus and how it decides how far each pole vaulter should jump. Some go into the lawnmower, some go straight into the house. Life was never fair to begin with. Oh, but I bet you haven't seen this one before. One where I lost because of the order I picked my plants. I tried to select Coffee Bean but ended up selecting the Cob Cannon that was on the tile underneath the Coffee Bean seed packet. Yup, I even have to consider the order I choose my seeds for this level. And I suppose you've seen enough of Jack-in-the-Box zombies killing us. Now introducing freezing too late with an Ice Shroom but losing to a Pole Vaulter instead. Yup, also entirely possible to not have any Cop Cannons die and still lose. It also can't be a TD mod video without having Gravestone do some stupid stuff. And also, some attempts were made at gardening and managing plants, but sometimes you could just, you know, accidentally dig up the wrong thing.
Oh my god! Oh jeez, oh my...
But finally, this is the absolute peak. It's losing the game because I didn't know that a flattened squash counted as a plant on the lawn. Right, that's a thing that I probably could have anticipated, you know? But by far, the most common reason I lost has nothing to do with any strategy. The hardest part of the level is keeping track of how many plants you have on the lawn. And you know what? I guess I'll also show you how some of these runs went down. Right here? Journal pull? No. Are you kidding me? Oh, come... Did I... Are you kidding? Play around? Wait. Are you... Okay, well, that was, Alright, you guys didn't see anything. Alright! I choked. I didn't wait for the squash to disappear. Okay, well, that is bad. Please, save this. Oh my god, I can't even save it. Bro. Okay, well. Bad. Okay, so we have 18 right now. This. Alright, I'm just stupid, I guess. All is fine. And, okay, I forgot I planted a Marigold. That is 21. Okay! I forgot to count the Gravebuster. I was like, oh, there's a plant open here, I can plant a Doomshroom. Nope, okay, that was... Okay. 1, 2, 3... Oh, because the coffee bean counted as one plant. Oh my... You know, I tried time and time again, but there was just never a run where I could play good enough to beat the level. It was just too difficult for me to survive against all the Jack-in-the-Box zombies. Trying to pre-plant Ice Shrooms was also too risky, and it was really easy for the zombies to destroy them when I wasn't paying full attention. But even after 50 attempts, there were still new ways to die, and that is the Zombotany P from the basic zombies variant destroying my Ice Shroom. It's truly insane just how many ways every zombie from this level can be a problem. So, in light of that, I finally made a significant change on my 52nd attempt, pivoting to Pumpkin over Twin Sunflower, to make 2 safe tiles for us to pre-plant our Ice Shrooms, protected from the Zombotany Ps. But it's not all sunshine and rainbows just because we have Pumpkin. It's only a minor insurance. We're still cooked if we don't correctly time our Ice Shrooms every wave. Even with Pumpkin, you're still not completely safe against Zombotany Ps and football zombies because they don't have that much health. But finally, after 8 hours of constant retries, practicing our Ice Shroom timings and absolute frustration, and dying in more than 20 different ways, and also solving many counting problems, I was able to beat the level. No kidding, this was by far the hardest level in the game I've played in terms of skill level required, and it destroyed me at the end. I'm just relieved that this level is finally over, and I am never replaying this ever again. And right after that, the next level is Unsodded. Maybe you can already see the problem with this level just from the plant selection screen. This level having 4 flags is already absurd, but since we only have 3 lanes to plant in, we have to use multi-lane attackers, which are all countered by dancing zombies, especially Starfruit. If we want to use Starfruit, then we must include double ice in our loadout to use the freeze every wave to prevent any backup dancers from spawning, which then means we can't have double Doomshroom. And even though Starfruits shoots twice as fast in the TD mod, they are still no match against Giga Gargantuars and an 8-time spawn rate. The sheer amount of them that get thrown at us is plain simple impossible to take down if we don't have Imitator Doomshroom. Stalling for time using Ice Shrooms is only somewhat effective. It only goes so far until each Starfruit bites the dust to the ever-growing horde. I mean, only 60% of the lawn space to kill Giga Gargantuars sounds just about as balanced as it could be, which is why I originally could not beat this level. But after a few months, I decided to retry this level for redemption and thought about the loadout more carefully. We need Sunflowers for Sun, Blowover to counter balloons, Gravebuster to make space, Gloomshroom as our damage dealer, Coffee Bean to wake them up, Pumpkin to protect them from some botany APs, and either Doomshroom or Cherry Bomb for flag zombies. And so, we have to now choose 2 plants. I tried it with Winter Melons first, but they are super inconsistent against dancing zombies and don't fully prevent backup dancers from spawning. Winter Melons mostly rely on RNGs since you can't control the freeze timings, which is too unreliable for a 4 flag level for my liking. So I went with Double Ice Shroom instead, since the persistent controlled freezes hold Giga Gargantuars in place much longer, allowing Gloomshrooms to unleash more damage. We'll only need 1 or 2 Ice Shrooms to get a Giga Gargantuar down to half health, which at that point, they must throw all 5 imps before attacking again, which takes so long that they'll be dead before they can. But that only works against solo Giga Gargantuars, since Gloomshroom's buff in this mod makes it do more damage to its closest target in each direction. You can clearly see here that the Giga Gargantuar that is closer will start turning out imps much sooner, but the Giga Gargantuar that's further back won't be at half health yet, so it walk forward and then take a swing and end up smashing our Gloomshroom. And as you may expect, once you lose your defense, there's not really a pathway to recovery here since you'll just get instantly overrun by Michael Jackson and his dance crew. So, on top of spending Ice Shrooms to freeze Giga Gargantuars, we need to spam sacrificial plants to stall the Giga Gargantuars even more. This will cost us a ton of sun, which is exactly why I moved the defense 1 column forward to make more space for Sunflowers. Now, we can defend against grouped Giga Gargantuars. Distracting Giga Gargantuars in lanes 2 or 4 is even trickier, since I have to plant something and then shovel it up quickly to avoid the splash from the smash. Now, I figured out how to defend lanes 2, 3, and 4 pretty easily, but I forgot to consider what to do if the game sent a bunch of Giga Gargantuars into the bottom lane. And so I lost a lot more just like that. That was when I realized instantly I needed more damage there, so I quickly went to plant a new Gloomshroom in lane 4, which should have been a good play if I didn't prioritize using the Coffee Bean on it instead of activating an Ice Shroom to freeze the Giga Gargantuars and protect the Gloomshrooms in the front. That one mistake, losing 1 Gloomshroom, cost me the entire game, as the Giga Gargantuars smashed their way through lane 4 and go on to kill half my defense. And by the time I was able to clear out the remaining Giga Gargantuars in lane 4, it was already impossible to salvage this as I'm not going to have time to replant those Gloomshrooms if I'm losing more to other zombies already. This level is just that. One mistake and you're out. I had 1 second to react to dancing zombies in the second lane, and just like that, we lost the game. And the fact that this level was so incredibly unforgiving was why I spent over 20 attempts trying to beat it, but I failed every time. But after many hours of practice, I hereby present to you how I managed to beat Unsodded. This was by far the hardest skill-based level in the entire game, and get ready to watch some sweaty gameplay because this level is a lot to take in. I had to use Ice Shroom every wave after the first wave to maximize the stalling in the early game. This was to maximize our sun production and recharge our plants as much as possible. I even started strategically placing sunflowers on the 8th column to further increase our sun income when we can. And your boy has to be absolutely locked into gain profits from these risky sunflower placements, as there are only a few seconds to dig up those sunflowers when dancing zombies come in. And remember, the sunflowers just has to generate 1 sun to break even, so we didn't really lose anything from that. But I was so focused on the dancing zombies, I completely missed that a buckethead zombie in the bottom lane didn't die to our Gloomshrooms. By the time I noticed it, I couldn't save the lawnmower anymore. But I had to remain vigilant. I locked back in, got a perfectly timed Ice Shroom against this dancing zombie, keeping an extra sunflower alive, and then started setting up Gloomshrooms in the back. After much trial and error, I've already thought out where I'm going to place every future pumpkin and Gloomshroom, and I'll only have pumpkins on these 3 tiles here to make sure that the Gloomshrooms there don't die to Gargantuar imps. I've also started stacking Ice Shrooms for the future waves, as we need as many of them as possible. On the first flag, you'll see how I plant a Blowover and instantly dig it up just in case there's dancing zombies, and I instantly kill the flag zombie with a Cherry Bomb. I've even thought this out beforehand. This is why I plant Blowover on the second lane to minimize the distance between where I planted and the shovel to dig it up as fast as possible. It may not have mattered there, but there's only a margin of a few frames when the dancing zombie does spawn in the lane where the Blowover is. So better safe than sorry, just dig up the Blowover every time. And yes, I continued stalling every wave by using ice shrooms to keep the zombies away from the gloom shrooms. It may seem ridiculous to continue stalling now that I have 10,000 sun and all the gloom shrooms I need already, but there's still always a small chance that dancing zombies just end up trampling them out of bad luck, so I need to continue min-maxing here. That is about all for the early game, and now we step into the mid-game as the first Giga Gargantuars start coming in. I already told you guys that we need to plant sacrificial plants to stop them from smashing our gloom shrooms, but what I didn't consider was that the middle lane gloom shroom was actually delayed because I had to replant it, so the Gargantua was actually close enough after throwing all its imps to smash the gloom shroom, which was a massive mistake. But I continued pulling through, as thankfully, all that stalling that I did allowed me to rebuy a gloom shroom almost immediately, getting me back on track right away, proving once again how important it is to maximize value from ice shrooms. So I continued defending perfectly for the next 10 waves or so. With all those pre-planted ice shrooms, it seemed almost impossible for us to lose, and I was doing everything correctly, keeping the Giga Gargantuars in check with sacrificial plants and all, keeping the Micro Jacksons at bay and whatnot. But all it took was one mistake for everything to go downhill. I forgot to take up a sacrificial sunflower in lane 2 and lost my gloom shroom in lane 3. This was detrimental, and it forced me to spend a cherry bomb to defend the Giga Gargantuars in lane 4 when it was originally unnecessary. And with the butterfly effect, that cherry bomb there delayed my next cherry bomb that I needed against the next batch of Giga Gargantuars, which was horrible timing as the next flag was coming. So I had to spend all my remaining ice shrooms to delay the bungee ambush from the flag zombie as much as possible. It ended up spawning some Poco zombies that only killed a gloom shroom, but most importantly was that I was now out of pre-planted ice shrooms. This is when everything just starts to fall apart and I could not possibly defend the Giga Gargantuars without extra stalling plants. So I had to skimp out on using Gravebusters, trying to save as much sun as possible to keep the gloom shrooms I had alive, and I don't even know how, but I somehow survived the onslaught and managed to stabilize right before the final wave, where I only had 400 sun left. I once again had no cherry bomb for the flag zombie on the flag, so it came down to RNG's whether I could beat this level once and for all, just because of that one sacrificial sunflower I didn't dig up. And I was incredibly lucky, since the bungee ambush ended up being just a jalapeno zombie in an empty lane and a pea shooter zombie with a dancing zombie in the middle lane where there were no gloom shrooms. But that was it. I had just done it. Unstalled it without save scumming, without cheating, and not even abusing the pause menu or anything. Did it by actual pure skill and the amount of optimizations for this. My god. I swear, there's no way we can push the limits of PvZ even further than this. Now we're finally done with that, let's move on to big time, and I'm already seeing some familiar faces. Conveniently, we just developed the exact strategy needed to beat the 4 flag level of footballs and Jack-in-the-Box zombies. And this time, we don't have the 20 plant limit, plus sunflowers are also twice as effective. Beating this is just an easier version of Sunny Day. So, to nobody's surprise, I beat the level on my first try using the same strategy I have been practicing for the past 3 days. Easy. Then we have the last art challenge level, which is art challenge sunflower, and this time I intentionally tried beating the level using only sunflower and Marigold again, and it worked again somehow. I don't know what's with all these art challenge levels being so easy, but I guess sunflowers making twice as much sun does make that much of a difference. Next up is Air Raid, which was left unchanged, so it's still just balloon zombie spam. However, the level is pretty much a joke, since cattails still cost the same as before, but sunflowers now make double the sun. On top of cattails being extremely affordable, balloon zombies also instantly die when their balloon is popped in TD mod, so we don't even need ground defense. But I gotta say, I got a bit too comfortable going into the second half of the level thinking this is gonna be a free win. I forgot how fast these guys moved and lost like a bunch of lawnmowers. So in light of that, I had to slightly sweat and immediately began working on a second column of cactus to secure our defenses. With the help of Plover and Ice Shroom, I got my defense up before I could be overrun. Obviously, the final wave dies to a single Blover, so that's the end of this level. High Gravity is the next minigame, and the only special zombies are screen doors and balloons. For those who don't know, in High Gravity, all plant projectiles are affected by high gravity, as the name implies, which causes them to hit the ground and miss the zombies. The good news is that we can work around the level's gimmick with Fume Shroom and Gloom Shroom, which are unaffected by the high gravity, so using them is essentially a free pass, especially considering the strongest zombies are just screen door zombies. Since screen door zombies do low damage, just planting a column of sunflowers in the front is enough protection for our Gloom Shrooms, and with double Blover to be 100% safe against balloon zombies, plus 2 columns of Fume Shrooms in the back, the zombies stand no chance against this defense. And that's how I beat High Gravity on my first try as well. Now onto Grave Danger. As you may know, gravestones already spawn in every level of the TD mod, so I didn't know what this level was about. With 4,000 starting sun, I had a bad feeling. I thought this was going to be the return of the Cemetery of Death, which is why I brought in Cop Cannons and Double Doom Shroom. But the actual gimmick for this level is that a random zombie spawns every 4 seconds, the condition from Adventure Level 6-10. Thank god I actually picked Cob Cannon since they can counter pretty much everything if played correctly. The strategy is very simple. Just get Cob Cannon slowly and stall out the zombies using Kernel Pulse, then use our instant kills on the grouped up zombies later when they become threatening. I mean, I probably picked the best strategy possible for this level's gimmick, especially with how strong Kernel Pulse is at stalling individual zombies. Unfortunately, there is one sole weakness for this loadout. We have no reliable counter for balloon zombies, and I couldn't have possibly known they would spawn, so I chickened out and died. Well, thankfully, the solution is super simple. I just swapped out the Ice Shroom for Blover, and balloon zombies are no longer a threat. Yeah, maybe doing this level with Cob Cannons was cringe since it completely negated the zombies being random, but I'm not complaining, and I'll take that easy win. Maybe I'll redo this level with less starting stun in the future to make it a bit harder. The remaining Limbo Page levels are all conveyor belt minigames, and I think most of you should be familiar with the conveyor belt exploit by now, which gives you new seed packets infinitely fast if your conveyor belt is completely full. And in Can You Dig It? There are only 3 different plants, meaning clogging the conveyor belt with 4 repeaters and 4 snow peas guarantees we only get squashes for the rest of the level. So yeah, the solution is pretty obvious. However, since Graves spawn throughout the level, the Gravestones will block us from using Squash on flag zombies before they spawn bungee ambushes, so we still needed repeaters against them. But thankfully, Squash has a 25% chance of freezing the board, so just squashing the zombies in the other lanes permafroze the flag zombie in place. And pretty much only flag zombies can threaten us this level. We just gotta plant repeaters when they come, but everything else can be defended with just spamming Squash, so there's not much strategy about this level. And another easy level out of the way. But as you may know, Dark Stormy Night is one of my least favorite levels in the game. The main reason is that I can't commentate on the gameplay since 90% of the time, there's nothing to see. It's also very annoying because you get trash like pea shooters and puff shrooms on the conveyor belt. The best attacking plant you get is Cactus, which is used to defend balloon zombies. But obviously, that on its own is not gonna defend 3 flags of zombies, and you guys all know the MVP of this level, which is Cherry Bomb. Unfortunately, even with an infinite stream of Cherry Bombs, we still lost because of an Ender Cone head. Yeah, thanks a lot, Cactus. I was less unlucky in my next run, so that didn't happen again, and that's Dark Stormy Night beaten as well. The last Limbo Page level is Bungee Blitz, which is just an extended version of Adventure Level 5-5. And as you may know, since you now get Doom Shroom from the conveyor belt instead of Pumpkin this level, you don't even need to plant any chompers since they only anti-stall the waves, which makes you get fewer Doom Shrooms. The level is literally just plant Doom Shroom 30 times in a row and win. Yeah, the Limbo Page conveyor belt levels were all pretty boring since they were all just spam instant kills every wave. But I guess there wasn't much else I could have done since there are so many zombies in the TD mod and the attacking plants aren't good enough to deal with the sheer number of zombies. That means that we have now beaten the last Limbo Page level, and as for the puzzles, I've put a link in the description if you want to watch them. Spoilers, they are all extremely easy, so you know what this means now. It's time to begin on the Secret Page levels, which are hidden away by clicking on the Limbo Page, then clicking on page 1. Doing so allows us to access 8 more extremely challenging levels with all new, unique twists and gimmicks. So, without further ado, let's start on the first level, Extremely Speedy Zombies. But these zombies are definitely not known for being fast. The gimmick this level appears after the first flag. All zombies move 10 times faster, but revert to normal speed if they encounter a plant or are slowed down. If that sounds familiar, that's because it is the same gimmick from Adventure Level 7-9 and what the T-Rex in PvZ2 gives to zombies. The first and most obvious way to mitigate the speedy zombies is to use an Ice Shroom, which renders the increased speed irrelevant. As for Pogo Zombies, the tried and tested staggered Gloom Shroom formation is a reliable way to kill them. It ensures Pogos in the even lanes die to the Fume Shrooms while those in the odd lanes die to the Gloom Shroom Splash. But since the zombies rush to our Gloom Shrooms so quickly, we kill them extremely fast, triggering the 50% rule almost immediately, only giving us about 7 seconds in between waves. That is not enough time to plant an Ice Shroom every wave, even with Imitator, and once we have no more Ice Shrooms and our pumpkins are dead, then our defense is certainly cooked. Well, you can get away by using Doom Shroom instead of Ice Shroom, but that has the same effect since it just kills the wave, so the next wave gets sent in immediately again. Even still, that's not enough time for our next Ice Shroom to be off cooldown before our entire defense collapses. The fact that waves spawn so quickly makes this one of the only levels where Wintermelon is better than Ice Shroom, since the short but repeated freezes give us better uptime if we can't use the Ice Shroom every wave, but it doesn't necessarily slow down the Pogo Zombies if it doesn't splash the right area, which makes our staggered Gloom Shroom formation not so reliable anymore. In case you were wondering why not just imitate Blover for full coverage, Blover doesn't slow down zombies with shields. The only thing we can do to mitigate this is to push our defense a bit further back to get a better chance at slowing down the Pogo Zombies. But no promises that could do anything, since we can't control where our Wintermelons splash and they can completely whiff. But that didn't even matter since I screwed up by having a Gravebuster on the lawn, which blocked the Flag Zombie and prevented our Gloomshroom from killing it. And we're all too familiar with not killing Flag Zombie at this point with the ridiculous bungee ambushes and graves that start spawning and destroy our entire defense. So I switched out Marigold for Imitator Pumpkin in my next run, providing more protection for our Gloomshrooms. Since its on-death ability has a 1 in 4 chance of freezing all zombies, this is also an extra way to slow down the Pogo Zombies when Blover recharges. But even with double the pumpkins, it's still not enough defense to fully protect our Gloomshrooms. Even though the zombies individually do very little damage, the constant pressure makes our defense hard to preserve. I gave this loadout a few more tries, but it was clear, this wasn't the solution. Extra pumpkins did not allow us to keep our defense alive against normal zombies, and their unreliable freeze made them somewhat weak against Pogo Zombies as well. So what's the right call here? Well, after a bunch of trial and error, I found that having both Wintermelon and Ice Shroom works the best. This combo deals with both of our previous problems at once, since Wintermelons protect our pumpkins from being eaten, and if Blover is recharging when a new wave is coming, we can slow down the new Pogo Zombies by using an Ice Shroom instead. In fact, using Ice Shroom to cover for us during Blover's downtime has made such a big difference, it's enough for us to get to the second flag without losing even a single Gloomshroom. Having both Ice Shroom and Wintermelon was such a game changer, we almost breezed all the way to the third flag without losing any Gloomshrooms. But then, the instant happened. No! Oh my god, that did not activate. Come on, no. Okay, we're still fine. Hey, we're good, actually. The Imitator Ice Shroom actually does save us here. We got bailed out by the pumpkin to save the game, and now we're on the home stretch. And it certainly ain't a pretty sight with how many zombies now spawn in just one wave. Even with Gloomshroom's high damage and its infinite pierce, they can't keep up with the constant chip damage the zombies inflict. But even though we lost part of our defense, the extra pumpkins we planted in the early game saved us as they provide just that little bit of extra protection for us to cling onto dear life before we could get completely overwhelmed. Any more waves than this, we would have stood no chance. But Ice Shroom made enough of a difference alongside Wintermelons protecting our pumpkins. Talk about razor-thin margins here, as every pumpkin that we planted ended up mattering, and that is how we beat the first secret page level, Extremely Speedy Zombies. The second level is Unpopular Plants Gathering, which is a locked and loaded level with the theme being that all the plants you get are trashed here. First of all, we have Magneshroom on a level with no metallic zombies. We also have Sunshroom instead of Sunflower, meaning our sun production is quite literally twice as slow. If you want the mats, since they recharge at the same speed, and also instantly break even after producing one sun, Sunshroom is straight up a strict downgrade from Sunflower. As an extra handicap on our already bad sun production, we also only have Cactus and Split Pea as our attacking plants, both being overpriced pea shooters in the early game. And last but not least, we have Plantard, whose usefulness is questionable, as well as Garlics on a level of Pole Vaulters. Sounds about right. Since our attacking plants are basically just expensive pea shooters, it's simply impossible to defend Pole Vaulters, making our already bad sun production even worse. But if you thought things couldn't get worse, this loadout has no explosives, and we'll somehow have to defend Flag Zombies and stop the bungee ambushes using just Cactus and Split Pea. And we don't even have any stalls or wall plants here. Surely the modder made sure this level is at least beatable, right? Your guess is about as good as mine as to how to beat this level. I started off with the very scuffed Garlic Split Pea combo, which ought to concentrate damage on the Pole Vaulters, but this works as well as you may have expected. It literally folded against just 2 Pole Vaulters, but you also just straight lose to Ender Coneheads with this setup because we only start damaging them on the 4th column. Split Peas may have failed us, but Garlics are not entirely useless, since we can also pair them with Planturn and utilize the Shockwave attack. A Gloomwalk from Temu would be the best comparison to what this strategy is. But this still doesn't solve the inherent problem that placing Garlics up front means we can't really stop Pole Vaulters. And before you ask me to use Potato Mine on them, that doesn't work because they trample our plants before the mine activates. But I haven't even told you about the worst part of this level. Let's just say the enraged balloon zombies make Garlic completely useless. All that effort to build up our defense worth several thousand sun and just 2 zombies on their own ruin it all. Then, I tried Gloom Wall from Temu, which doesn't work either. The slow attack speed of Planturn makes it extremely unreliable for countering Pole Vaulters. And it's even worse than Temu Gloomwalk since we have no buffer zone to kill the Vaulters after they jump. Over the next half dozen or so attempts, I tried a bunch of different setups by putting Cactus or Split Pea in different columns, but none of these even made it past the Flag Zombie's bungee ambushes. We simply have no quick way to kill the Flag Zombie or deal with the bungee ambushes it spawns. it may seem like we're doomed, but some hope remains. It discovered that having 5 attacking plants in a lane is enough to kill the flag zombie after only 1 Bungie ambush, but this comes at the cost of being limited to only 1 safe column for some producers. As you may expect, 1 column of Sunshrooms is not enough to fund the overpriced speed shooters we're forced to use, and pretty quickly, we just lose to pole vaulters again. But there is still one last way to deal with the flag zombie. We can plant a planter in the very front in the lane next to the flag zombie and utilize its on-death explosion. But yeah, it needs to die, which might not be fast enough because of its own shockwave attack. The flag zombie still ended up spawning a Bungie ambush, so yeah, we end up screwed regardless of what we try to do to minimize our losses. Is this level even possible? I kid you not, I spent over 4 different live streams and more than 30 different attempts trying to beat this level. I built every setup imaginable using the given plants, but none of our attempts even came close to getting us to the final wave if we were lucky enough to not die to the flag zombie Bungie ambushes. I honestly thought this level was impossible, until it wasn't. Getting past the flag zombie requires immense luck, as we need both fast-moving zombies and Zalbotany P basic zombies to damage the planter quickly enough so the flag zombie dies before it spawns a Bungie ambush. Most crucial to our survival is high-rolling the shockwave attack timing to kill the enraged balloon zombies. In case you didn't see that, it was, in fact, the planter's own shockwave attack that killed the enraged balloon zombie, and not Cactus. That timing is so precise it's impossible to plan for, but that stupid RNG is the only way to win since Cactus reacts too slowly otherwise. Just having the planter alive to do some splash before all our cacti upgrade to the burst version is mandatory if we want to defend the later waves with the higher density of zombies. And just like that, we went from not even being close to the final wave to beating the level all at once. Sometimes these levels aren't even close to possible, but just take one problem out of the equation that can be fixed with some good RNG, and suddenly, it's all trivial from there. Welcome to the Mushroom Garden, but with a line drawn down the middle of the lawn. And you're seeing this right, those are Giga Gargantuars. On top of that, Cherry Bomb and Cob Cannon are banned. I'll be honest, this already looks pretty bad. The game didn't explain what this line meant, so I made my educated guess that this was a Don't Let the Zombies Trample the Flowers challenge from PvZ2 and went ahead with a Cob Cannon, Wintermelon Hyper Strat. And yes, Cob Cannon is supposed to be banned, but Imitator bypasses the restriction. But soon, you'll see what this line does. And that right there is where the level name Fold comes from. Plants change positions periodically by folding across the lawn, each moving to its mirrored spawn on the opposite side. A fold happens once every minute, affecting all plants except those placed directly on the middle column where the line is. And yes, this gimmick makes all ranged plants practically useless since anything we have in the back will just teleport to the front a minute later. This means the only attacking plant that is even mildly viable is Gloomshroom. I know it's the only viable option again, but it's the only plant that doesn't get messed up when the lawn is folded since the defense only occupies one column. Now, I didn't say using Gloomshroom was a thought-out plan against Giga Gargantuars. There's no way to slow them down with this loadout since I forgot they were immune to Blover, and our Chronopulse might as well be useless since we can only plant a few in between folds. And yeah, one smash and we're cooked against Giga Gargantuars. What did you expect from a one-column defense? But hey, we can also try and exploit the folding to our advantage using Tallnut this level. Usually, Tallnut is completely useless since it constantly moves towards the right, so it doesn't even block zombies off for long and eventually just drifts off the lawn. But now, because of the fold, their position is reset once every minute, which gives them another chance to protect our plants again, making it the only wall plant that benefits from the fold. And thanks to the fold gimmick, this is the first time I managed to utilize Tallnut's special ability, where it does a blowover attack when it's about to die. Yes, the first time after like 150 hours of the TD mod. Damn shame that doesn't even matter much since Tallnuts don't slow down Giga Gargantuars, meaning we still have to run double Ice Shroom. And learning from our last run, I immediately planted an extra Gloomshroom to DPS down that Giga Gargantuar at the bottom. But Giga Gargantuars don't only spawn in one lane, and very quickly, we find ourselves in a position where we can only either counter the Imps or the Giga Gargantuar itself, because there aren't enough Gloomshrooms for us to defend everything at once, and we end up losing a bunch of lawnmowers. Plus, this loadout doesn't even stand a chance against Zamboni since our only answer is instant kill spam. But 2 consecutive waves of Zambonis and more Giga Gargantuars will certainly finish us off. So even the best attacking plant didn't do much, meaning we will once again have to use the dumb strategy. But what specific plans should I use? Well, that's just going to be trial and error. I first tested it with Hypnoshroom and Gold Magnet since it counters football zombies. but this has massive flaws against green Zombonis. They randomly switch lanes, so we can't counter them predictably with gold magnets if they can just go somewhere else. Not only does that waste their gold magnet, but now we have to spend even more instant kills to kill it. Then, even worse, whenever more Zombonis come in the wave after, we're left with nothing to defend against them. This forces us to sacrifice a lawnmower, which we'll have to do many times throughout this level since our instant kills are too limited to defend everything the game throws at us. And since Giga Gargantuars also takes so many instant kills to kill, our only hope to DPS down Giga Gargantuars is with Gold Magnet and then holding them in place using Chump Blockers and or Ice Shrooms. But I've just forgot about the one little caveat of using Gold Magnet. Don't ever try and encounter an Ender Conet with a Hypnotized Zombie, since that'll just make it teleport to the back instantly. And on top of that, I also forgot that Imitator only has 1 HP, and planted it right into a Zombotany P. Yup, that's just me throwing. Despite the mistakes though, we still performed better using the dumb strategy, so we're on the right track here. I then tried Imitator Gold Magnet, but somehow this is even worse because the green Zomboni seems to have a mind of its own, Matrix dodging its way through all 5 Hypnotized Zombies and also killing all our Sun production, leaving us with no defense against regular Zombonis, so this is certainly not it. So as our last resort, we're gonna imitate Doomshroom. Having 2 Doomshrooms usually anti-stalls the waves too much and makes our other instant kills worse, but this is the rare scenario where more damage rather than stalling is better, since that extra knockout punch against Giga Gargantuars lets our other instant clean up the remainings more reliably, coming with the cost of lawnmowers getting less value overall. But the tricky part is figuring out what we use as our 10th plant. Tawna is like good value, but there's no real opportunity where it's useful. It's pretty awkward since it just instantly dies to Giga Gargantuars and Zombonis, so it ends up doing very little, maybe at most it kills an imp or 2. And in fact, Tawna isn't even good at blocking off random stray zombies. Here, our only option was to chump block the All-Star with a Tallnut, but then a perfectly timed fold happens which unblocks the lane, so much for me thinking the fold makes the Tallnut better when it's still completely unusable. Ironically, I found that Pumpkin was the best choice, simply thanks to the small chance it freezes the lawn when it dies. It seems stupid to use it just for that, but it actually saved our lawnmower against these imps here. And it's not even that bad against Giga Gargantuars, since we can just plant pumpkins in the top lane where they can't spawn. But obviously, the freeze effect is random, so we may or may not get a freeze at all, which is a problem when you've got a giant football zombie charging down an empty lane and every plant is on cooldown. We didn't get the freezes in time, and so we lost. Please, RNGesus, have mercy on me. I then kept trying this level with the same loadout, just hoping to get lucky enough with pumpkin freezes, but I could not push my luck any further than I already had. Defending Giga Gargantuars without attacking plants or cob cannons just seemed nearly impossible, but there is a way. Lawnmowers. By looking at which lane had the most Giga Gargantuars, I preemptively decided to sacrifice lane 2 because it would cost us the most to defend there. This frees up resources for us to focus on the remaining Giga Gargantuars, and with the help of literally every single plant in our loadout, we can hold off the massive horde of zombies without losing our other lawnmowers. However, the biggest optimization of all was actually spending a Doomshroom to kill the regular brown coat zombies. It looks stupid, but this keeps our hypnotized zombies alive, so that they can move further forward and deal with a second batch of Giga Gargantuars. Doing so gives us slightly more value out of our gold magnets, which is crucial to our survival as it allows us to stall enough to reach the very important point, 2 waves before the final wave, which is when we want to sacrifice our remaining lawnmowers. As odd as it sounds, using our remaining lawnmowers is a necessity at this point. But why would I not want the lawnmowers for the final wave? Well, we actually have to save our instants for the final wave, because we need to deal with the flag zombie using a jalapeno. Plus, we need both Doomshrooms off cooldown so we don't die to green Zomboni switching into a lane without a lawnmower. We did get lucky and none of those spawned, but my point still holds. And after we deal with the Zombonis, you can see that all the Giga Gargantuars you have to deal with are now clumped into one lane, thanks to our lawnmower sacrifices, which makes it a heck of a lot easier to deal with. Just several explosives later, and that's all the zombies that could kill us all destroyed. That is how I managed to overcome Giga Gargantuars with only instant kills and beat Fold. The next level is pretty straightforward. In Protect Plants, don't let any of the endangered plants die. If any of the free pre-placed plants are lost, we lose immediately. Well, how hard could it be to just protect free plants?
Oh no!
This is as bad as it seems on paper as in practice. There's only half a second to react to a blue squash zombie before it can crush the endangered garlic. A sacrifice on a 9 column doesn't even help, since any pole vaulters will instantly jump into the back if we place a plant there, so we're forced to use explosives to deal with squash zombies. But just for an idea of how fast you have to be, If you didn't pre-select your instant kill when the wave spawns, the time it takes to move your cursor is enough to make you lose. And we don't have hotkeys to select plants in the TD mod, making it much harder than, say, if this was in brutal mode. With that little time to react to squash zombies, I don't think any human will beat this without some extra breathing room. That's why I have to mass pre-plant ice shrooms in the early game to freeze every wave as soon as it spawns, so that we can at least have some time to target our cop shots. But even so, you can't just use the coffee bean when you see the next wave coming, because that's actually too slow, and the ice shroom won't freeze before the garlic gets trampled. It's not just about having fast hands or good eyes, but I'll have to keep track of when the next wave will spawn and time my ice shroom activations accordingly. The precise timings sound pretty bad, but you can still have Kernel Pole to sometimes stun blue squash zombies if we mess up our ice shroom timing. It's unreliable, but some insurance is better than none. Just keep in mind, we only have Kernel Poles in 2 lanes, so if I don't plant the coffee bean as soon as the 50% rule is met, our other lanes will still suffer the consequences, albeit not game-losing ones for now. And I said for now, because even though our endangered plants are alive, those blue squash zombies killed an ice shroom. It doesn't seem significant, but since we're anti-stalling the waves to kill jalapeno zombies before they explode, we're using ice shrooms faster than we can replenish them, which is only possible since we're using up our pre-planted ice shrooms from the early game. Once I've used up all the pre-planted ice shrooms, we become a sitting duck against squash zombies, and it's game over. This is the perfect example of how accumulating tiny mistakes over time can lead to catastrophe. And with a level like this where we have to practice and master the timings, I sucked a lot in like the first 10 attempts of this level, always dying to a squash zombie because either freezing too early or too late, but I was willing to put in the dedication to improve. And practice I did. After about an hour of constant retries, I got the hang of it. Perfect ice shroom activations at the start of each wave, and also perfect cop cannon timings to maximize the time between waves. Boy oh boy was this level tough at first, but after a lot of practice, this level simply becomes rinse and repeat with the same ice shroom and cop cannon timings for every wave. I'll make it look easy now, but there were several hours of effort in getting the timings down as precisely as possible, and that's how we protected the endangered plants from the jalapeno and squash zombies in the TD mod. But aside from protecting plants, the next level is Protect the Cursor. The gimmick is so absurd, I hadn't even started recording by the time we lost. Just watch what happened. Oh my god. What the heck was that? What the heck was that? What? No! I haven't even started recording yet and we lost already? Welcome to this absolutely atrocious level, where we have to avoid touching the danger tiles with our mouse cursor. It might sound harmless at first if you just pay attention to where your cursor is, but it severely slows us down because we have to move around the craters when planting something new. And the tolerance on whether you're touching the tile or not is extremely small. If you literally touch a single pixel, you instantly lose. You're trying to plant a new gloom shroom? Touch 1 pixel of the crater and bam, you're dead. So, unless you want to spend 5 seconds carefully weaving the cursor between the craters every time you want to plant something new, we're gonna break the confines of the game itself by just moving the cursor outside of the game window and coming back in after making a giant loop on the outside to plant whatever we're trying to plant. These strats are like the impossible quiz type shit right here. It makes something as simple as placing a gloom shroom a laborious task, since it takes 5 loop arounds to plant. Preparing the flower pot, then the fume shroom, then grab the coffee bean to wake it up, then getting a pumpkin to protect it, and then finally upgrading it to a gloom shroom at the end. Yeah, just planting that 1 gloom shroom took us 15 seconds. And doing that isn't even optional, since it's so easy to lose when you're just trying to weave your cursor around the danger tiles. But the danger tiles aren't the only new thing in this level, as we are limited to only 1 umbrella leaf for this level as well. And in case you were wondering, you can't bypass the restriction by using imitator umbrella leaf. On top of that, Bungie zombies in this level steal instantaneously with no delay, making our only umbrella leaf that much more important. But there is one last change to this level that makes it pretty stupid. Just watch my reaction to this. What? Bungie zombies stole away your mouse? What, so you can't even touch... You can't touch Bungie zombies either? Is that... really? You can't touch Bungie zombies either. I'm not even gonna try and pretend I understand why that message pops up, because I still don't understand when the game considers a Bungie zombie stealing your mouse cursor. I didn't even have my mouse cursor in the game window, and the game says it was stolen, so clearly it's not detecting where your mouse cursor is in-game. It also has nothing to do with the last tile you touched before the cursor left the game window. Here, I planted a flower pot on the 8th column and pulled my cursor out towards the right, so the last tile I'll touch is most certainly on the 9th column. But then the mouse cursor still gets stolen, so it certainly does not track where your cursor last was within the game. And it also has nothing to do with where the last plant you placed was. I put this pumpkin right on top of this Gloomshroom and moved my mouse cursor off the game window. Then you see the Bungie zombies coming in, and none of them target the tile where we just planted a pumpkin, but the game still said that our cursor was stolen again. Like, what even is the gimmick here? And it's not just the mouse cursor stealing gimmick that's stopping us from making any progress on this level. The danger tiles and how even touching a single pixel of it will result in you instantaneously losing is like the most annoying thing to exist ever. I'm not even exaggerating, but this might just be the most frustrating level I've ever attempted. And the crash outs I had, man, they were something. What? This counts? Are you kidding? This counts? What the heck? Oh my god, come on! No! Bullshit. Oh my god, I tried to play Doomshroom and then we lose to the Conehead. Are you Are you this Come on, man. I have to wait 10 minutes again. Okay, whatever. Anyways. Okay, now I have to really play this again. Come on. Are you No! This level has like no Come on! Oh my god. Bullshit, dude. I was trying to play some hell. Okay. Oh, top lane's dead again. Are you f***ing me? And this died as well. Okay. Are you kidding me, man? I just want to play Gloomshroom and I touched it. Oh! I can't, dude. I can't. Oh my god, no! Please plant faster. Okay. No. Are you kidding me? Come on! Oh, this level, man. This level sucks. I mean, I got pretty fed up after all that losing for 3 hours straight. And you know what? I just said, F it. Let's just save scum so we don't have to deal with this bullshit. And I admit it. It's petty. I don't have the patience to weave my mouse cursor around the danger tiles perfectly for 3 flags straight, but I ain't playing a level that only has screen doors and bungees for more than 3 hours just because I can't move my cursor carefully enough. So that's why I'm doing it. And I'm sure stretching it out is pretty pointless as well because like, I'm not really providing any new strategies for you guys to see anyway. So yeah, that's protect the cursor completed, but not really just yet. Can we still lose? Wait, guys. I'm just curious. Can we still lose right here? Wait, no! No! Are you kidding me? It's impossible to win. We can't click on the cash bag because it's on top of the craters. All this time, we've been trying our best. Oh, okay. I'm just gonna count it because, yeah, I'm not playing. Yeah. Well, moving right along from that, Power of Wind is the next level, the only minigame in the Blood Moon world. For some reason, Chopper and Imitator are banned this level. As soon as the level begins, a message describing the current wind strength and direction appears. Since this is in Chinese, I'll put up an English translation for you guys. When there's an east wind, all projectiles accelerate towards the left, like the wind from the east blowing things westward. This makes Zombottany Ps faster, hence becoming more threatening. And as I said, the wind affects all projectiles. This means Gloomshroom's single target spores now fly to the left instead of shooting in all 4 directions. Thankfully, the wind doesn't affect its main splash attack, so it's not that big of a nerf. But the twist is that the wind changes in strength or direction every 20 seconds. If there's a west wind instead, then Gloomshroom is now giga buffed since it now shoots 16 additional projectiles towards the zombies every burst. And yes, this also means that Zombottany Ps will be blown away during a west wind, negating all the Gatling P zombies. Yeah, so the wind also blows away Doomshroom and Doomshroom only. Guess the modder anticipated that Doomshroom spam would ruin the entire gimmick of the level. I can't believe I got trolled by the modder like that. I guess they were 2 steps ahead of us in thinking about what plant we would use to cheese the level, so fair enough, man. We're forced to use Jalapeno instead to counter the Flag Zombie, and I guess this is the one time Jalapeno is better than Doomshroom when they cost the same amount of sun. But not having a Doomshroom won't hurt us much since we have Doomshroom on our side. It is the only attacking plant completely unaffected by the wind, making it the perfect choice for this level since we're already using Gloomshroom. With the only threats being Gatling Pea and Screen Door Zombies, we cruised past the first half of the level without losing any Gloomshrooms. And I was pretty surprised by this as well, but this defense was very resilient, and we continued holding up despite the zombies coming in ever-increasing numbers. That's just the pure power of Infinite Pierce Fumeshroom and Gloomshroom coming into play, and I suppose having Zombotany Peas completely negated half the time was really helpful as well. But our downfall was imminent. After we've already lost most of our wall plants because of an earlier east wind, the third Blood Moon Rising began, and now there are like 8 double-speed Screen Door Zombies stacked on top of each other in every lane. Jalapeno dealt with 1 lane for us, but there's no possible way to defend this massive clump. Yeah, I tried planting a pumpkin and it literally died in 2 seconds. The horde rips right through our Gloomshrooms like butter melting in a pan. It looks like we're about to get cooked, but not just yet, because luckily, we still had 2 Gloomshrooms in lanes 2 and 5 helping out to clean up that mess. But surely, now I'm done against the next wave, right? Well, thank RNGesus because I got bailed out by a pumpkin freeze in lane 4, and at just the right moment as we needed it, the wind changed direction and blew away all the Zombotany Peas, saving our entire defense from collapsing and saving this run. I did some crazy maneuvers with pumpkins and walnuts afterwards to stall the waves so I could rebuy some of the defense, and somehow this bare bones defense held off everything until the final wave. 1 Jalapeno to kill the Flag Zombie, and since we have all our lawnmowers left, that's GG's, and we beat the level on our second try. Crazy stuff, man. The next level is Simon Says. It's one of the more creative levels in any PvZ mod I've ever seen. You'll see what I mean. The level itself is pretty pedestrian. It's just 2 flags and there aren't that many special zombies. But what makes this level unique is the objectives the game periodically assigns to us. Yes, we must complete these in-game side quests that we randomly get, like this one where we have to lose a lawnmower within a minute. But here's the thing, because of the slowdown before the first flag, it takes more than a minute for any zombie to reach the lawnmower in the early game in this mod. So yeah, the first objective we got was an impossible one. So what happens if we don't do the side quest? Well, you instantly lose the game. That might have been the quickest loss ever in the TD mod. There are a total of 7 different side quests that we can get, with each objective providing us a unique condition we must fulfill to survive. The second side quest is to not let any zombies other than basic zombies die, which is easy to accomplish now, but you probably already see why we're not going to make it very far in this attempt either way. And there we go, we completed the first objective of the level by doing nothing. But these quests don't stop coming as there's only a 7-second cooldown before we get a new one, and somehow we lost instantly because we didn't satisfy the condition of whatever that was. What the heck? Now, here's the thing about this. The game does not give you objectives that you can necessarily complete. The one way you must lose a lawnmower within a minute is simply impossible if it's one of the first 2 tasks. This is quite a serious problem since it's one of the most common early game objectives, making the level extremely luck-based to beat. So initially, my way to resolve this is to turn off the early game slowdown entirely so we can lose the lawnmowers in time. But oh boy, that's not gonna help with the next task. Let me show you. Wait, what? Kill the imp in 20 seconds? Can we do this? Do this? Yeah, just do this. I think we got it, right? Wait, no, wait, what? Wait, how much health with this? What the hell? How much health? We spent 2 instant kills already. Brother, still not dead! What the hell? What the heck? What are you talking about? We need Hypno Shroom? No! What the heck? What are you... Of all the side quests in this level, nothing tops that. The imp side quest gives you only 20 seconds to kill an imp, which has 6,000 health, as much as a Giga Gargantuar in vanilla, requiring us to spend 4 explosives on it. Even if you try, there's no chance that you can kill it using attacking plants only because there's nothing that deals damage this quickly. In fact, this imp side quest forces us into using cob cannons and Hypno Shroom for this level. We'll need to have explosives on standby at all times to clear out any zombies out on demand, as we need to separate the imp from everything else in its lane so that we can be sure that it will be the one that eats the Hypno Shroom, which is the only practical way to complete this objective. Now, aside from side quests that require you to do something more, There's also one that makes you do less, as this one forces you to stop moving your mouse cursor for 10 seconds. That's 10 seconds of no planting, no shuffling, no cop targeting, and we have to wait it out while the zombies do their thing. Then there's a side quest that's the complete opposite of doing nothing, where you only have 5 seconds to dig up 4 plants, so that'll be the one that tests our reaction speed. There's also a quest which is the exact opposite of digging up plants, as we have to deplete our sun count to below 500 within 10 seconds, forcing us to plant more stuff onto the lawn. I did tell you this level was creative after all. The worst part of this level is that we'll keep getting new side quests. So the longer we take to beat the level, the more objectives we have to complete and do more stupid things, like sacrificing lawnmowers and digging out more of our own plants. And obviously, the more objectives we need to complete means the higher chance of messing up and losing the game on the spot, and there's no such thing as recovering from a mistake in this level. These side quests are also extremely easy to fail, since we can't just be prepared for every possible side quest whenever a new one is assigned. If you plant too many sunflowers early on, then you just straight lose when a task that forces you to get below 500 sun in 10 seconds appears. So somehow, we need to compromise and plant fewer sunflowers. And since every run is also unique and not all objectives appear equally common, every run may be more difficult or easier depending on what happens. And finally, in this run, I made it past the early game so I can show you guys what happens at the first flag. Here's a weird thing about it. There's no warning for when the flags arrive, so when that happened for the first time to me, I was completely caught off guard. I panicked and lost my items when I was still confused about what was going on. And here's another thing about most of the side quests. They're all significantly harder when there are ladder zombies in the mix, because if we suddenly get the task that we can only kill basic zombies, we'll just instantly lose the game if there's an enraged ladder zombie. Absolute cinema. Well, thankfully, they're easy to counter, so I immediately brought in Walnut to force them to use their ladder and slow them down. But somehow, this cop shot didn't hit the enraged ladder zombie in the first lane, and our next side quest was to not move our mouse cursor for 10 seconds. And at the exact same time, a ladder zombie just had to spawn in exactly the first lane, so we have to watch it run straight into our house. Absolute cinema once again. But there's still one more side quest I haven't shown, and this one is the rarest, which is let basic zombies eat 5 plants within 20 seconds. This last side quest is how the game stops us from using only instant kills, and thankfully, we had enough regular plants off cooldown to sacrifice when we got this quest. But we spent so much sun on just feeding the zombies, our defense is now in shambles, and the next task was to dig up 4 plants, which resulted in us going completely broke. So planting fewer sunflowers for the Deplete Your Sun side quest resulted in us just losing to the zombies instead. And being limited to only 500 sun makes us struggle a lot more in the early game, since we don't have the flexibility of just using cop cannons. So we can't beat the level with too little sun, and we can't beat it with too much. So how do we strike a balance? Well, we need an easier time in the early game, then we have no choice but to turn the early game slowdown back on. Now I know, I did say that having the early game slowdown meant that getting the lawnmower sacrifice task early on was an instant loss. And that is still true. We do still straight up lose if we get that specific side quest as one of our first 2 objectives. But that's only if we don't have Magnesium in our loadout. See, there's one interaction we all forgot. We can use Magnesium to remove the bucket from a buckethead zombie, which makes it move faster. And now, we can lose our lawnmower while still having the early game slowdown. I don't know why I didn't think of this earlier. And since we can now bring back the early game slowdown, the early stages of the level are now significantly more consistent for us, so it will be easier than ever to set up cop cannons and lay out our defenses before the first flag. But just getting a strong defense is not the end-all be-all in this level, because even if you feel safe, you can still instantly lose if a specific side quest shows up at the wrong time. Guys, yes? We might have this here. No! Task where you can't kill anything other than basic zombies came up. Are you? No! Bro, cringe! And you'd think having cop cannons means you can now control when to kill the zombies, but it's possible the warning message for an incoming new task doesn't show up until you've already launched your shot, and by the time you realize, it's already too late to do anything to change the outcome. So to play around that task, we need to survive any incoming zombies without killing them, which is why I thought using an ice shroom preemptively would be a good idea, but doing that instead makes us lose if we get the let basic zombies eat 5 plants task. So there's literally no win-win situation, since if you can safely not kill the zombies and survive, then you just lose to the side quest instead. Great level indeed. And if you think the answer is to instead spend all your cop shots before there's a new task, then you lose to the imp task because now you can't separate the zombies and it's lane for the hypno shroom. I swear there's nothing you can do on this level to prepare for every possible side quest. This level was so difficult, I spent over 100 attempts trying to beat it. And yes, it took forever to rewatch and edit this down, over 8 hours of gameplay into a watchable segment of this video for you guys. But after so much trial and error, I still could not find the missing piece of the puzzle. What was it that I was missing? Thus far, I've tried beating the level by minimizing the chance we lose to the side quests, but after so many failed attempts, I'm throwing that strategy under the bus and pivoting to a double doom strategy instead. My new theory was that we needed to speedrun this level, as the faster we beat the waves, the fewer tasks there would be. I wasn't very successful initially, as mass pre-planting Doomshrooms was extremely vulnerable to an unlucky pull ambush, but I was gonna give it another chance at least before discarding it completely. I wasn't lucky on my second try using the strategy either, with a pull ambush backup dancer destroying all our pre-planted Doomshrooms again. But you know what I did get lucky on? The game wasn't sending any ladder zombies at all, which allowed me to continue surviving despite having a completely battered defense and beat all the tasks thanks to their absence. But our luck was about to run out, as the next task we got was absolutely devastating. We had to sacrifice a lawnmower, but the only 2 lanes we had a lawnmower were, The way I approached this was a complete and utter tactical failure, because I accidentally let the pole vaulter on the bottom lane jump to the back. Now I have to spend a Doomshroom on preventing our brains from getting eaten, which left us wide open and exposed, as we were left with nothing but a singular cop cannon as defense. But before I even knew what I could do to save this position, a ladder zombie spawned in an empty lane and ran straight into our house. And despite our hundreds of setbacks, I was still determined to try and beat this level. And with enough determination, the pull ambush on the first flag finally didn't instantly kill all our Doomshrooms, meaning it was time to execute our speedrun plan, killing every single wave as fast as possible, utilizing all of our explosives. But right here, we got the side quest to let basic zombies eat 5 plants. The huge problem with that was that they were bucketed stacked on top of basics, so there was no way for me to know whether it was the basic zombies that ate the plants we sacrificed or not. And even though I fed the zombies 5 plants already, the side quest was still active, and we only had a few seconds left. We were about to lose, but remember that Imitator only has 1 HP, and we managed to save the game by sacking our Imitator Doomshroom. If you thought that was crazy, the next task was even worse, because we got the Imp task, and the Imp spawned in the only lane that was completely clogged by gravestones, meaning we could not use Hypnoshroom. So quickly thinking, I immediately used my cop shots on the Imp to try and DPS it down with the help of Doomshroom, and with only a couple of seconds left on the clock, we somehow clutched this side quest as well. After 2 consecutive close calls, I quickly eliminated the next wave with Doomshroom, and even I can't believe this happened. But we did it. I actually somehow got through this horrific level. I managed to become the first ever victor of Simon Says without using cheats or pauses. Side quest completed indeed. And last but not least, the final level of the TD mod, My Mouse, takes place on the Great Wall. The level's special gimmick is that every 30 seconds, our mouse cursor teleports to a random position on the screen. This level is actually pay to lose, since your cursor can be teleported off the game window, so if you have multiple monitors like I do, it can take a full second to move your cursor back to the game. Picking Cop Cannon for this level might have been the worst choice of all. You try and target a cop shot, and suddenly your mouse cursor goes somewhere else, and you either miss completely or you're now delayed by 3 seconds. But here's the thing, I was originally going to explain the detailed strategy for this level, but after a couple of attempts, I found out that the game starts moving your cursor the more the later you go, moves it so much in fact, I'm not even gonna bother you with the rest of the level because it's definitely impossible. Why do you ask? Well, this is what happens to your cursor after the 3rd flag. Well, is that the end of the TD mod? For the levels? Yes, but I'll be making a tier list of all the plants in the TD mod, so stay tuned for the next video by subscribing to the channel. For now, thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.